I'm here in Detroit. I'm from the Madison, Wisconsin area. I work for RIVET as an implementation manager. Came from the electrical contracting side of the industry, and I'm now trying to put that knowledge to work here at RIVET. My dad owned a steel stud and drywall company. He has since retired. I worked with him for a little bit, not very long, realized I just wouldn't be able to work for my dad. You couldn't get any respect from the other coworkers or anything, being the boss's kid. So I went into a different industry, and that's how I decided on the electrical trade versus the carpentry trade. The biggest one would be when I transitioned from being on the field side of the industry, going into more of an office type of management role. Your day-to-day was significantly different than when you're just out with the goal of getting one job. You were managing a ton of people, a ton of different trades and everything, but then starting to look at all of the work the company has globally was just a completely different process and it had a big learning curve. I mean, as a whole, even to this day, probably just driving around town, seeing buildings that I helped either build physically or worked on mentally, trying to plan the project, or finding the right resources to get the job done. And then just, I had a ton of awesome coworkers over the years, so just a lot of memories on the job or just working with people, solving problems, getting projects done. Very rewarding. Labor planning, whether dealing with a labor shortage or in some cases a labor surplus, with a major schedule shift to try to work through all the different scenarios and how it'll affect that job, as well as all other jobs that need resources on it. This can be a very daunting and sometimes extremely stressful process. You're just dealing with people's livelihood. So if you got to lay some people off, for example, last year there was a time where we had to do a significant size layoff, and those people are out of job, they're not collecting a paycheck, or other people are screaming for help and you just can't get them the resources they need. So they're stressed because they're not getting their job done on time. It's really hard to find the perfect balance, that there's just the right amount of people and the right people to get the job done. Yeah, I mean, utilizing one of its core tools of forecasting, you're able to at least have a best guess early on, using some best practices, tried and true, they've been researched, to build a forecast early in the project. Start seeing that go through, and then start scheduling people to the job, utilizing the certifications and tags to get the right people on the right job at the right time, and then get them off that job and onto the next job, and just kind of keep rinsing and repeating the process. By giving company leaders, operational leaders, project stakeholders all of the information at their fingertips that relate to their specific job duties, it's meted or exceeded expectations all the way across the board. The culture here is significantly different than I'm used to at contractors, I'll just say significantly different than the contracting industry as a whole, for the better.
And what makes you say that? What makes working within construction tech different or better than working in construction?
This allows you to have a seamless process to make informed decisions on projects you should be pursuing, the amount of margin you should be putting on these projects, as well as making very well-informed decisions on projects you already have ongoing, with scheduling resources to these projects. In the electrical contracting industry, once everyone works their way up to a journey worker, they're essentially the same classification. However, they have many different attributes. What they excel at installing, what they excel at in doing. For example, someone might be a fire alarm specialty. Someone might specialize in installing distribution or large conduit. So utilizing tags, you can tag all your workers with what they excel at. So when that portion of the project comes up, you can get the right resource to it. Because if someone specializes in fire alarm, you don't want them going and installing. The construction industry isn't going anywhere. It is, however, changing.